Daniel Harper stood at the lakefront, a small velvet box trembling in his hand, watching the woman who'd once been a stranger walk toward him through the winter fog. 11 months ago, he'd nearly texted, "Sorry, can't make it," to cancel a blind date his boss had orchestrated. 1 hour. That was the deal. Show up, be polite, leave. But that single dinner had unraveled every careful wall he'd built around his heart. Now, as Natalie's silhouette emerged from the mist, Daniel understood something terrifying and beautiful. The decision he'd almost avoided had become the most important moment of his life. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you enjoy what you hear tonight, hit that like button and stay until the very end, because this journey is worth every minute. The alarm clock's shrill cry cut through the darkness at 5:47 a.m., 3 minutes before it was supposed to. Daniel Harper's hand shot out instinctively, silencing it before the sound could wake Lily. He lay there for a moment in the pre-dawn stillness of his Chicago apartment, staring at the ceiling where a water stain had formed the vague shape of a sailboat. 32 years old, and his life had become a series of carefully orchestrated routines. He rolled out of bed, feet finding the cold hardwood floor, and moved through the apartment with the practiced silence of a single father who'd learned that stolen morning minutes were sacred. The coffee maker gurgled to life. While it brewed, Daniel assembled Lily's lunch with mechanical precision: turkey sandwich, apple slices, the granola bar she liked but never finished, and a note on a post-it that read, "You're braver than you think. Love, Dad." It was the same note he'd been writing for 3 weeks. Lily had started second grade nervous about making friends in a new school. Daniel wasn't sure if the daily affirmations helped, but he kept writing them anyway. That's what fathers did. They showed up, even when they weren't sure it mattered. By 6:30, he was gently shaking his daughter's shoulder. "Morning, sunshine!" Lily groaned, pulling her unicorn comforter over her head. 5 more minutes. "That's what you said yesterday. And we were late." Daniel smiled, tugging the blanket down. "Come on, pancakes are waiting." That got her attention. Lily's eyes opened, bright green, just like her mother's had been. The resemblance still caught Daniel off guard sometimes, even 3 years after Sarah had walked out. Not died, not disappeared, just decided that motherhood wasn't what she'd signed up for and left for Portland with a musician she'd met at a coffee shop. The divorce papers had arrived on Lily's 5th birthday. Daniel pushed the memory away and focused on the present. Lily scrambled out of bed, her dark curls a chaotic halo around her face. While she got dressed, he flipped pancakes and checked his phone. 17 work emails already. A text from his sister asking about Thanksgiving plans, and a calendar reminder that made his stomach tighten. Friday, 7 p.m., dinner with Natalie Grant. He'd been trying not to think about it for the past week. The whole thing had started innocently enough, if you could call anything orchestrated by Eleanor Grant innocent. Daniel's boss was a force of nature, 63 years old, silver hair always pulled into a precise bun, dark suits that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. She'd built Grant Marketing Solutions from nothing over 3 decades, and now commanded a team of 47 people with the kind of quiet authority that made grown men nervous. She was also, unfortunately, a relentless matchmaker. It had started 2 months ago, during a project debriefing. Daniel had been presenting the quarterly analytics for their biggest client when Eleanor interrupted. "Daniel, are you seeing anyone?" The room had gone silent. Mark from Creative stopped mid-sip of his coffee. Jennifer's fingers froze over her laptop keyboard. Excuse me?" Daniel had stammered. "Dating. Are you dating anyone?" Eleanor repeated, as casually as if she'd asked about the weather. No, I'm focused on work and Lily right now." Eleanor had nodded, as if confirming something she'd already suspected. "My daughter moved back to Chicago last month. She's single. You're single. You should meet." Before Daniel could form a polite refusal, Eleanor had moved on to the next agenda item. He'd assumed, hoped, it was just passing conversation. He'd been wrong. 2 weeks later, Eleanor had mentioned it again. Then again. Each time more insistent, though always wrapped in that elegant, unshakable politeness that made saying no feel somehow rude. She shared small details about Natalie, her work in environmental policy, her recent return from 5 years in Washington, D.C., her love of architecture and terrible puns. "She's brilliant," Eleanor had said one afternoon, appearing in Daniel's office doorway like a well-dressed ghost. "And she's been through enough disappointments to appreciate a good man when she meets one." Daniel had tried every deflection. He was too busy. Dating was complicated with a daughter. He wasn't ready. But Eleanor Grant didn't build a successful company by accepting no for an answer. Finally, worn down by persistent suggestions and the uncomfortable reality that this woman signed his paychecks, Daniel had agreed to one dinner. One. Just to get Eleanor off his back. That was 3 weeks ago. Now, as he drove Lily to school through Chicago's morning traffic, the dinner was less than 12 hours away, and Daniel was seriously considering food poisoning as an excuse. "Dad, you're doing that thing again," Lily said from the back seat. "What thing?" "The thinking thing. Your face gets all scrunchy." Daniel glanced in the rearview mirror. His daughter was looking at him with that unsettling perceptiveness that 7-year-olds sometimes possessed. "Just work stuff, kiddo." "Is it about the lady?" His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What lady?" "The one Mrs. Martinez was talking about. I heard her tell you about dinner, Mrs. Martinez was their neighbor, a sweet woman in her 70s who sometimes watched Lily when Daniel worked late. She was also, apparently, listening to his phone conversations through their shared wall. "It's just a work dinner," Daniel said, which was technically true if you squinted hard enough at the definition of work. "Okay." Lily went back to looking out the window, but Daniel could see her small smile in the reflection. Kids always knew more than they let on. He pulled up to Longfellow Elementary and walked Lily to the entrance, same as every morning. She hugged him quickly, growing up too fast, already a little embarrassed by public displays of affection, and ran inside. Daniel watched until she disappeared into the building, then sat in his car for a moment, engine idling. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Daniel. This is Natalie Grant. My mom gave me your number. Looking forward to tonight. Does 7 p.m. at Bistro Margot still work?" Direct. No unnecessary pleasantries. Daniel appreciated that, even as his anxiety spiked. He typed back, "Yes, see you then." 3 words. Safe. Non-committal. He stared at the message for a moment before hitting send, then immediately regretted not adding something warmer. But it was too late now. The day stretched ahead like an obstacle course he hadn't trained for. Grant Marketing Solutions occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower in the Loop. Daniel arrived at 8:30, coffee in hand, ready to bury himself in work and not think about the evening ahead. That plan lasted until 9:15, when Eleanor appeared at his desk. "Good morning, Daniel." He looked up from his computer. "Morning, Eleanor." She stood there, hands folded, with that expression he'd learned to recognize, the one that meant she wanted something but was going to make him offer it first. "The Hendricks proposal looks solid," she said, glancing at his screen, "though I think we should emphasize the digital metrics more in Section 3. I'll make those changes." "Good." She paused. "I understand you're meeting Natalie tonight." There it was. Daniel set down his coffee carefully. "Yes, 7 o'clock. She's been looking forward to it." "I'm sure she's as thrilled about this setup as I am," Daniel said, then immediately regretted the sarcasm. Eleanor raised one perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "You think I'm meddling?" "I think you're proactive." A ghost of a smile crossed Eleanor's face. Natalie said almost the exact same thing. "Perhaps you two have more in common than you realize." She turned to leave, then paused. "Daniel, I'm not trying to complicate your life. I'm trying to uncomplicate it. Sometimes the best things happen when we stop overthinking." She walked away before he could respond, leaving Daniel staring at his screen without really seeing it. The afternoon crawled by with agonizing slowness. Daniel sat through 2 meetings, revised the Hendricks proposal 3 times, and answered 47 emails, all while checking the clock every 15 minutes like a prisoner counting down to parole. At 4:30, his phone rang. Lily's school. His heart immediately jumped into his throat. Every parent's instinct. That flash of panic at an unexpected call. He answered on the first ring. "Mr. Harper, this is Principal Davidson. Everything's fine, but we need you to come pick up Lily." "What happened? Is she hurt?" She's not injured, but she's quite upset. There was an incident with another student at recess. 20 minutes later, Daniel was sitting in the principal's office while Lily explained through hiccuping tears that a boy named Connor had said her lunch notes were stupid and babyish. So I pushed him, Lily finished, looking at her shoes. Lily, I know I shouldn't have, but he was being mean, and I got mad, and she dissolved into fresh tears. Principal Davidson, a kind woman with gray-streaked hair, gave Daniel a sympathetic look. I understand it was provoked, but we have a zero-tolerance policy for physical contact. Lily will need to write an apology letter, and she's suspended from recess tomorrow. Daniel nodded, feeling that familiar squeeze of single-parent inadequacy. Was he failing her somehow? Should he stop with the notes? But she'd seemed to like them. They drove home in silence. Lily stared out the window, occasionally sniffling. When they got to the apartment, she went straight to her room. Daniel stood in the kitchen, staring at his phone. The dinner was in 2 hours. Mrs. Martinez wasn't available tonight. She'd mentioned a book club meeting. His sister lived 40 minutes away. He could call and cancel, explain the situation, and Natalie would probably understand. It would be the responsible thing to do. It would also be a relief. He pulled up Natalie's number, thumb hovering over the call button. Then Lily appeared in the doorway, still wearing her school clothes, eyes red from crying. Dad, are you mad at me? Daniel's heart broke a little. He put the phone down and crossed to her, kneeling so they were eye level. No, sweetie, I'm not mad. Disappointed that you pushed Connor, yes, but not mad. I don't like when people make fun of your notes. My notes. They're from you. They're special. Connor doesn't understand that because he doesn't have a dad who cares. Her lower lip trembled. His parents are getting divorced. I heard him tell Emma. Ah, there it was. Hurt people, even when they're 7. Daniel pulled Lily into a hug. You still shouldn't have pushed him, but I understand why you were upset. Tell you what, tomorrow, we'll write that apology letter together, and maybe we can think of something kind to do for Connor, something that shows him not everyone is unkind when they're hurting. Lily nodded against his shoulder. Okay, but right now I need your help with something. She pulled back. What? I have a dinner tonight that I can't cancel. It's important for work. Mrs. Martinez can't watch you, but he made a show of thinking. What if you came with me? Lily's eyes widened. To a restaurant on a Friday night? To a restaurant on a Friday night? You can bring your book and sit at the table. Best behavior, though. A smile broke through her tear-stained face. Can I get dessert? We'll see how good that behavior is. Deal. Problem solved, though not exactly the way Daniel had envisioned the evening going. He texted Natalie. Small complication. My daughter will be joining us tonight. Hope that's okay. If you'd prefer to reschedule, I completely understand. Her response came within seconds. No problem at all. Looking forward to meeting you both. Either she was genuinely okay with it, or she was very good at hiding disappointment. Daniel suspected he'd find out soon enough. Bistro Margot was a French-inspired restaurant in Lincoln Park, all exposed brick and soft lighting, and the kind of menu where everything was described in 3 languages. Daniel had never been there before. It was exactly the type of place where bringing a 7-year-old felt like a terrible idea. But here he was at 6:55 p.m., holding Lily's hand as they walked through the door. The hostess, a young woman with severe bangs and an intimidating air of sophistication, looked at them with barely concealed surprise. Good evening. Do you have a reservation? Harper, table for 2. He paused. Well, 2.5. Lily tugged his hand. Dad, I'm not half a person. Table for 3, Daniel corrected, feeling heat creep up his neck. The hostess checked her tablet. Your party hasn't arrived yet. Would you like to wait at the table or the bar? Table, please. They were led to a corner booth. Lily immediately started swinging her legs and examining the elaborate light fixtures. Daniel tried to look relaxed and failed miserably. He straightened the silverware, glanced at the menu without absorbing any of it, checked his phone twice. You're nervous, Lily observed. I'm not nervous. Your leg is bouncing. It always bounces when you're nervous. Daniel forced his leg to be still. I'm just alert. Because of the lady? Because this is a work dinner and I want to make a good impression. Is she nice? I don't know yet. That's why we're having dinner. Lily considered this. If she's not nice, can we leave early and get ice cream? Deal. At exactly 7 p.m., Natalie Grant walked into the restaurant. Daniel recognized her immediately, even though they'd never met. She looked exactly like the LinkedIn photo Eleanor had shown him. Shoulder-length, dark hair, sharp features, dressed in a charcoal blazer and dark jeans that somehow looked both casual and put together. But the photo hadn't captured the way she carried herself. That particular combination of confidence and caution that came from navigating professional spaces where you had to prove yourself constantly. Their eyes met across the restaurant. She smiled, polite, slightly uncertain, and walked over. Daniel! He stood up too quickly, nearly knocking over his water glass. Yes, hi, you must be Natalie. Guilty as charged. She extended her hand. They shook, her grip firm and brief, and then both seemed to realize how formal that was and laughed awkwardly. And this must be Lily, Natalie said, turning to his daughter with genuine warmth. Lily looked up from her menu, assessing. Hi. Hi yourself. Your dad mentioned you'd be joining us. I hope that's okay. It's my first fancy restaurant dinner, Lily announced. Dad said I can get dessert if I behave. Sounds like a solid negotiation. Natalie slid into the booth across from them, and Daniel sat back down, acutely aware of every movement he made. This was already so much more awkward than he'd imagined. The waitress appeared, a college-aged woman with a bright smile. Good evening. Can I start you with something to drink? Red wine, Natalie said. Whatever you recommend. Same, Daniel added, then immediately second-guessed himself. Should he have ordered something different? More interesting? And for the young lady? Shirley Temple, Lily said excitedly. After the waitress left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Daniel searched desperately for something to say. Natalie seemed to be doing the same. They both started talking at once. So your mother... My mom mentioned... They stopped, laughed again, less awkwardly this time. You first, Daniel offered. Natalie leaned back slightly, and Daniel saw something shift in her expression, a decision being made. Okay, let's just address the elephant in the room. My mother has been trying to set me up with someone for approximately 6 weeks. She's described you as responsible, kind, and exactly the type of man I should be dating, which honestly made you sound boring. Daniel blinked. Wow. Okay. But then she mentioned you were a single father and that you agreed to this dinner despite clearly not wanting to, and I thought, okay, at least he's honest about his reluctance, which is more than I can say for most first dates. The waitress returned with their drinks. Daniel took a sip of his wine, buying time to process Natalie's refreshing bluntness. For what it's worth, he said carefully, your mother described you as brilliant and accomplished, which made you sound intimidating. I am intimidating, Natalie said with a slight smile, but usually only in professional settings. Lily had been watching this exchange like a tennis match. Now she spoke up. Are you two going to talk about Mrs. Grant all night? Because that seems boring. Both adults looked at her, startled. Then Natalie laughed, a real laugh this time, surprised and genuine. She's got a point, Natalie said. How about we make a deal? We give this dinner 1 hour. We eat. We talk about anything except our mothers. And at the end, we tell Eleanor it went fine, but there was no spark. Everyone saves face. Nobody's feelings get hurt. Daniel felt a wave of relief so strong it was almost physical. That sounds perfect. Great. Natalie raised her wine glass. To obligatory dinners and managing expectations. Daniel clinked his glass against hers. To lowered expectations. Lily held up her Shirley Temple. To dessert. They all laughed, and just like that, the tension broke. The first 15 minutes were carefully neutral. They talked about the menu, the restaurant, the unusually warm October weather. Safe topics. Easy topics. The kind of conversation you could have with anyone. Then Lily asked Natalie what she did for work. I work in environmental policy, Natalie explained, setting down her menu. Basically, I make sure companies actually do the environmental things they promise to do. Like recycling? Lily asked. Sometimes. More often, it's bigger things, like making sure factories don't pollute rivers, or that companies use sustainable materials instead of harmful ones. So you're like an environmental police officer? Natalie grinned. Sort of. Except instead of giving tickets, I write really boring reports that embarrass companies into following the rules. That sounds important, Lily said seriously. It is, though some days it feels more frustrating than important. Natalie glanced at Daniel. What about you? My mom said you work for her, but not much else. Project coordinator, Daniel said. I manage client campaigns, timelines, budgets, team coordination, making sure everything runs smoothly. He's good at organizing things, Lily added proudly. Our apartment has labels on everything. Everything? Natalie asked, amused. Everything, Daniel confirmed, slightly embarrassed. It's easier than searching for things. I respect that. My apartment currently has 3 different boxes labeled miscellaneous because I moved back to Chicago 2 months ago and still haven't unpacked properly. The waitress returned to take their orders. Daniel chose the salmon without really thinking about it. Natalie ordered the duck. Lily requested chicken fingers with an intensity that suggested this was a matter of grave importance. After the waitress left, Natalie turned back to Daniel. So how long have you been a single parent? It was a question Daniel usually deflected, but something about Natalie's directness made him answer honestly. 3 years. Lily's mom left when she was 4. He waited for the usual response, the pity, the uncomfortable sympathy. But Natalie just nodded. That must have been hard. It was. Still is sometimes. But we manage. He glanced at Lily, who was now drawing on her paper placemat with a crayon the waitress had provided. She's pretty resilient. She seems great. Natalie paused. For what it's worth, I grew up with a single parent. My dad died when I was 6. My mom built her entire company while raising me alone. So I have some appreciation for what you're doing. Daniel hadn't known that. Eleanor never talked about her personal life. I'm sorry, that must have been difficult. It was. But it also taught me that families come in all shapes, and that the people who stay matter more than the ones who leave. There was weight behind those words, something personal and probably painful. Daniel found himself curious about the story there, but didn't push. Their food arrived, and the conversation drifted to lighter topics. Natalie asked Lily about school. Lily asked Natalie about Washington, D.C. Did she meet the president? No. Did she see the Washington Monument? Yes, many times. But was it really as tall as in pictures? Taller, actually. Daniel mostly listened, watching his daughter engage with this stranger with surprising ease. Lily was usually shy around new people, but something about Natalie's straightforward manner seemed to put her at ease. Can I ask you a question? Lily said suddenly, looking at Natalie with that unnerving child honesty. Sure. Do you like my dad? Daniel nearly choked on his water. Lily, I'm just asking. You said we should get to know her. Natalie's eyes sparkled with amusement. That's a fair question. Honestly, I don't know yet. I just met him an hour ago. But so far he seems nice. He raised a pretty cool kid, which says something good about him. Lily nodded, satisfied. Okay, you can stay for dessert then. I appreciate the permission, Natalie said, managing to keep a straight face. Daniel wanted to disappear into the floor. So sorry. Don't be. She's right to vet me. If I were her, I'd want to know who my dad was having dinner with, too. The check of approval from a 7-year-old seemed to shift something. The conversation became easier, more natural. Daniel found himself actually relaxing, forgetting about the 1-hour deadline they'd set. Natalie told a story about testifying before a congressional committee and accidentally calling a senator by the wrong name. Daniel shared the time he'd sent an important client presentation with his daughter's unicorn stickers accidentally embedded in the slides. They traded stories about Chicago, neighborhoods, restaurants, the best places to watch the sunset over the lake. I'd forgotten how much I missed this city, Natalie admitted. DC is important, but it never felt like home. Too much performance, not enough authenticity. What brought you back? Honestly, I got tired of fighting battles that felt futile. In DC, you're always one election cycle away from all your work disappearing. Here, I can focus on local policy, smaller scale, but more immediate impact. She paused. Also, my mom had a health scare last year. Nothing serious, but it reminded me that time is finite. I wanted to be closer. That makes sense, Daniel said quietly. The waitress cleared their plates and brought the dessert menu. Lily's eyes went wide at the options. "Can I get the chocolate lava cake?" she asked. "May I?" Daniel corrected automatically. "May I get the chocolate lava cake?" "You may." While Lily was distracted by the dessert menu, Natalie leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you almost cancel tonight?" Daniel blinked. "How did you—" "Because I almost canceled too. 3 times, actually. Once yesterday, once this morning, and once in my car before walking in here." She smiled. "So I'm guessing I'm not the only one who felt trapped by maternal pressure." He laughed despite himself. "You're definitely not. I've been looking for excuses for weeks. Today, I actually considered using my daughter's school suspension as an out." "School suspension?" "She pushed a kid who made fun of my lunch notes." "Your lunch notes?" Daniel pulled out his phone and showed her a picture of today's post-it. "Every morning. Started when she was nervous about the new school." Natalie studied the note. "You're braver than you think. That's really sweet." The kid she pushed didn't think so. "The kid she pushed sounds like a jerk. She was defending something that mattered to her. I respect that." The waitress brought dessert, lava cake for Lily, creme brulee for Natalie, coffee for Daniel. They ate slowly, the conversation continuing to flow with surprising ease. "So what made you show up?" Natalie asked. "Tonight, I mean. Instead of canceling." Daniel thought about it. "Honestly, curiosity. And the fact that your mother is my boss and I'm not quite brave enough to disappoint her. Fair reasons. Want to know why I came?" "Sure." "Because my last relationship ended badly, and I promised myself I'd stop hiding from uncomfortable possibilities. This felt uncomfortable, so I made myself show up." She took a bite of her creme brulee. "Also, my mother can be very persistent when she wants something. I've noticed." Lily had chocolate on her face and looked blissfully happy. Daniel checked his phone and realized with surprise that it was 8:47. They'd been here for nearly 2 hours, way past their 1-hour agreement. Natalie noticed him checking the time. "Past your deadline?" "Way past." "Mine too." She didn't seem in a hurry to leave, though. Neither was Daniel. The restaurant had filled up around them, the Friday night crowd, couples and groups laughing over wine. But their corner booth felt separate from all of it, like a small island of unexpected conversation. "Can I be honest about something?" Natalie said. "Please." "I came here tonight planning to be polite, eat quickly, and leave. I was going to tell my mom it was fine, but not worth pursuing, but—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "This has been surprisingly not terrible," Daniel smiled. "That's a ringing endorsement. I don't give empty compliments. Not terrible is actually pretty good, coming from me." "In that case, this has been surprisingly not terrible for me too." They looked at each other for a moment, something unspoken passing between them. Not attraction exactly, or maybe attraction, but the quiet kind. The kind that snuck up on you. Lily yawned, breaking the moment. "Someone's getting tired," Daniel observed. "I'm not tired," Lily protested, then immediately yawned again. "We should probably go," Daniel said, signaling for the check. When it arrived, he reached for his wallet, but Natalie had already handed the waitress her card. "My mother orchestrated this," she said firmly. "Least she can do is pay for it. I'll expense it." "I don't think that's how company expenses work." "She owns the company. She'll allow it." They gathered their things and walked out into the cool October night. The street was busy with Friday evening activity, couples heading to bars, groups of friends laughing, the familiar pulse of the city. Daniel's car was parked 2 blocks away. They walked slowly, Lily between them, holding both their hands. "Thank you for dinner," Daniel said, "and for being understanding about the unexpected third wheel." "She's the best part," Natalie said, smiling down at Lily. "Plus she asks better questions than most adults I know." They reached Daniel's car, a practical Honda Civic with a car seat and back. He unlocked it and helped Lily climb in, buckling her seatbelt. When he straightened up, Natalie was standing a few feet away, hands in her jacket pockets. "So," she said, "what do we tell our mothers?" "The truth? That it wasn't terrible?" She laughed. "That'll just encourage them." "True." Daniel hesitated. "We could tell them there was no spark. Stick to the original plan." "We could." Natalie looked at him thoughtfully. "Or Or we could get coffee sometime, voluntarily, without parental involvement. Daniel's heart did something unexpected in his chest. You want to get coffee? I'm proposing the possibility of coffee. As two adults who survived an obligatory dinner and found each other's company, not terrible. He smiled. I could drink coffee, voluntarily. Good. She pulled out her phone. Give me your number, the real one, not the one my mom gave you. They exchanged numbers. Natalie immediately sent him a text, proof of voluntary contact. Daniel looked up from his phone. When? When what? When should we get coffee? Are you free Sunday afternoon? There's a place in Andersonville I've been wanting to try. Sunday works, 2 o'clock? Perfect. They stood there for another moment, neither quite ready to leave. This is the part where we say goodbye, Natalie finally said. Right. Goodbye then. Goodbye, Daniel Harper. She turned and walked toward her own car, a silver Prius parked across the street. Daniel watched her go, then climbed into his car where Lily was already half asleep in her car seat. He sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, processing what had just happened. The dinner he dreaded for weeks had turned into, what? A pleasant surprise? A genuine connection? The beginning of something he hadn't been looking for? His phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. How did it go? Daniel smiled and typed back, not terrible. Her response was immediate. That good? He started the car and pulled into traffic, heading home through the Friday night streets of Chicago. In the back seat, Lily stirred. Dad? Yeah, sweetie? I like her. Yeah? Yeah, she's smart, and she didn't talk to me like I'm a baby. Those are good qualities. Are you going to see her again? Maybe. We're getting coffee on Sunday. But can I come? Not this time. This is just for grown-ups. Okay. A pause. But I get to meet her again if she sticks around, right? If she sticks around, you'll definitely meet her again. Good. Daniel glanced in the rear-view mirror. Lily had already drifted back to sleep, her head resting against the car seat, chocolate still smudged on her chin. He thought about Natalie's words. The people who stay matter more than the ones who leave. It was too early to know if she would stay. Too early to know if this was anything more than two people enjoying an unexpected evening. But for the first time in 3 years, Daniel found himself hoping for something beyond the careful routine he'd built. And that, he realized, was already something significant. Sunday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn clarity that made Chicago feel like the best city in the world. Daniel woke early out of habit, even though Lily was spending the day with his sister Amanda. He lay in bed for a while, staring at the ceiling, that familiar sailboat-shaped water stain now looking less like a boat and more like a question mark. It was just coffee. Two adults meeting voluntarily. Nothing to overthink. He was definitely overthinking it. By noon, he'd changed shirts 3 times, settled on jeans and a navy Henley that Amanda had bought him last Christmas, then changed again to a gray button-down before finally going back to the Henley. When he caught himself debating between his brown boots and sneakers for the 4th time, he forced himself to stop. This is ridiculous, he said aloud to his empty apartment. You're 45 minutes early and spiraling over footwear. He chose the boots. The coffee shop Natalie had suggested was called Brew and Mortar, tucked into a quiet corner of Andersonville. Daniel arrived at 1:52, which felt appropriately punctual without seeming desperate. Through the window, he could see exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, and the kind of carefully curated aesthetic that suggested the owners had opinions about coffee sourcing. Natalie was already there. She sat at a corner table, laptop open, completely absorbed in whatever she was reading. She'd traded Friday's polished blazer for a cream-colored sweater and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked different, softer somehow, though no less focused. Daniel pushed through the door, and a small bell chimed. Natalie looked up, her face breaking into a smile that did something unexpected to his pulse. You're early, she said, closing her laptop. So are you. I've been here an hour, had some work to finish, and figured I'd do it here instead of my disaster of an apartment. Daniel slid into the seat across from her. Still haven't unpacked those miscellaneous boxes? I opened one yesterday. Found my college textbooks, a broken umbrella, and someone else's coffee mug. No idea whose. It's a mystery box situation. A barista approached. A young guy with impressive facial hair and an air of coffee expertise. What can I get you? Cappuccino, please, Natalie said. Daniel scanned the menu board, momentarily overwhelmed by options. Just regular coffee, medium roast? The barista's expression suggested Daniel had just ordered the most boring thing possible, but he nodded and retreated. Not a coffee snob? Natalie asked. I drink coffee for caffeine, not philosophy. Fair. Though you're missing out. This place does a pour-over that's genuinely transcendent. Maybe next time I'll be adventurous. Next time? Natalie's eyes sparkled with amusement. Confident. Daniel felt heat creep up his neck. I meant, if there is a next time, not that I'm assuming. Relax, I'm teasing. She leaned back in her chair. So, how was the rest of your weekend? Did Eleanor interrogate you about Friday? She sent 3 texts Saturday morning asking for details. What did you tell her? That it was pleasant? Pleasant, Natalie laughed. That's delightfully vague. My mom called me at 7 a.m. yesterday demanding a full report. I told her we had a nice dinner and were getting coffee. How did she react? She said, and I quote, I knew it. Then she tried to give me advice about not rushing things, which was rich considering she orchestrated the whole setup. Their coffee arrived. Daniel took a sip of his extremely regular medium roast and found it was, annoyingly, actually excellent. Natalie watched him over the rim of her cappuccino. Good? She asked. Irritatingly good. Don't tell the barista I was wrong about needing fancy coffee. Your secret's safe with me. They fell into easy conversation, picking up threads from Friday night. Natalie told him about her new job at a nonprofit focused on corporate environmental accountability. She'd been there 2 months and was already frustrated by the glacial pace of policy change. Last week I sat in a meeting for 3 hours about the wording of a single paragraph in a report nobody's going to read, she said, stirring her cappuccino. Meanwhile, there's a manufacturing plant in Gary dumping chemical waste into Lake Michigan, but we can't address it until we finish our quarterly review process. Sounds bureaucratic. That's a generous word for it, but it's the game. You can't change the system from outside it, so you wade through the nonsense and fight the battles you can actually win. She paused. Sorry, I'm ranting about work. That's terrible second date conversation. Is this a second date? You tell me. We're drinking coffee voluntarily and talking about our lives. Feels date adjacent. Daniel smiled, then ran away. I want to hear about it. So she did. She told him about the politics of nonprofit work, the balance between idealism and pragmatism, the small victories that kept her going. Daniel found himself genuinely interested, not just in what she was saying, but in the way she said it, the passion underneath the frustration, the refusal to accept easy cynicism. When she finally stopped talking, she shook her head. Okay, your turn. Save me from myself. Tell me about marketing campaigns and project coordination. Oh, trust me, it's less interesting than environmental justice. I doubt that. Plus, I monopolized the last 20 minutes. Fair's fair. So Daniel told her about his work at Grant Marketing Solutions. The constant juggling of client demands and team dynamics, the satisfaction of seeing a campaign come together perfectly, and the stress when it didn't. He found himself sharing things he rarely talked about, like how he'd almost quit 6 months ago when a client had blamed him for their own strategic failures, and how Eleanor had quietly defended him in a meeting he wasn't supposed to know about. She's tougher than she looks, Daniel said, but also more protective of her people than she lets on. That's my mom, Natalie said fondly. She pretends to be all business, but she's actually a soft-hearted control freak who shows love through meddling. Is that what this is? Love through meddling? Absolutely. In her mind, arranging that dinner was an act of maternal devotion. Natalie's expression grew more serious. She worries about me, thinks I work too hard and don't make enough time for personal connections. Does she have a point? Maybe. I spent 5 years in D.C., basically married to my job. Had a relationship that ended because neither of us could figure out how to prioritize each other. She traced patterns in the foam of her cappuccino. What about you? How long has it been since you dated anyone seriously? Daniel considered lying or deflecting, but Natalie's honesty seemed to invite the same. 3 years since Lily's mom left? That's a long time. It didn't feel long. Mostly it felt necessary. I had to figure out how to be a single parent, and dating seemed like it would just complicate things. And now? Now I'm sitting in a coffee shop having a surprisingly good conversation with someone I met because our mothers conspired against us. So maybe I'm ready for complications. Natalie smiled. Complications can be good. Better than stagnation, anyway. They talked for another hour, the conversation wandering through topics both serious and mundane. Natalie asked about Lily, how she was adjusting to school, whether the suspension had caused any lasting drama. Daniel asked about Natalie's childhood, growing up with a single mother building a business. It was lonely sometimes, Natalie admitted. Mom worked constantly. I spent a lot of time with babysitters or at the office doing homework while she took meetings. But I also learned what it looked like to be driven, to build something meaningful. Do you ever resent it? The time she spent working? I did when I was younger, especially in middle school when everyone else's parents came to every game and recital, and mine was always caught up in some business crisis. She paused. But as I got older, I understood. She was doing it for us, and she was showing me that women don't have to choose between ambition and motherhood. They just have to work twice as hard as everyone else. That's not exactly fair. No, but it's reality. Natalie looked at him directly. What about Lily's mom? Do you talk about her? It was a bold question, but Daniel appreciated it. Sometimes, Lily asks questions occasionally, and I try to answer honestly without being bitter, which is harder than it sounds. I can imagine. What do you tell her? That her mom loved her but wasn't ready to be a parent. That sometimes people make choices we don't understand, and that's not Lily's fault. That she's loved and wanted and enough exactly as she is. Natalie's expression softened. That's really beautiful. It's also really hard, because some days I'm angry at Sarah for leaving, and I have to swallow that anger so Lily doesn't internalize it. Does it work, the swallowing? Most days. Other days I label things in my apartment with unnecessary precision and pretend that's not me trying to control something. Natalie laughed. So the labels aren't just organizational efficiency? They're mostly organizational efficiency, but they're also cheaper than therapy. Outside the window, the afternoon light had shifted to that golden pre-evening glow. The coffee shop had filled up around them, people working on laptops, couples sharing pastries, the Sunday afternoon crowd. Natalie checked her phone and grimaced. I should probably go. I have a report due tomorrow that I've been procrastinating on. The quarterly review paragraph? A different report, but equally tedious. She started packing up her laptop. This was nice, though. Really nice. Yeah, it was. They stood, gathering their things with the awkward choreography of people not quite ready to say goodbye. Daniel walked with her to the door, and they stepped out into the crisp October air. So, Natalie said, turning to face him on the sidewalk, should we do this again? The coffee or the conversation? Both, either. Whatever you want. Daniel smiled. I'd like that. Though, fair warning, next time I might bring Lily. She's already asked when she gets to see you again. I'd be happy to see her. She's good company. Natalie hesitated, then added, but maybe we could also do another adults-only thing? Dinner, maybe? Somewhere that doesn't involve my mother's expense account? Are you asking me on a date, Natalie Grant? I'm proposing the possibility of a date. As two adults who have now voluntarily spent time together twice and found the experience mutually tolerable. Mutually tolerable, Daniel repeated. You really know how to sweet-talk a guy. It's a gift. She pulled out her phone. I'm free Wednesday night. There's a Thai place in Wicker Park I love. Nothing fancy, but the food's incredible. Wednesday works. What time? 7? I can meet you there if that's easier. Or I could pick you up, if you're comfortable giving me your address. Natalie raised an eyebrow. Traditional. I like it. Though I should warn you, my apartment is still a disaster zone. I promise not to judge your unpacking failures. She texted him the address. Don't say I didn't warn you. They stood there for another moment, that same charged hesitation from Friday night hovering between them. Then Natalie stepped forward and hugged him, quick and unexpected, but warm. See you Wednesday, Daniel Harper. See you Wednesday. She walked to her car and Daniel watched her go, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not just attraction or interest, but genuine anticipation. The sense that something was beginning, and he actually wanted to see where it went. His phone buzzed as he got into his own car. A text from Amanda. Lily wants to know if you're dating the CEO's daughter. I told her it's complicated. Please clarify. Daniel smiled and typed back, tell her it's date adjacent and evolving. Amanda's response was immediate. That's not clarification. That's corporate speak. I learned from the best, Daniel replied. He drove home through quiet Sunday streets, already thinking about Wednesday. Wednesday arrived faster than expected. Daniel spent Monday and Tuesday in a blur of work meetings and Lily's evening routine, but his mind kept drifting to the Thai restaurant, to Natalie's smile, to the way she'd hugged him goodbye. On Wednesday afternoon, Eleanor appeared in his office doorway. Daniel, do you have a minute? He looked up from his computer, immediately wary. Eleanor's "do you have a minute" usually meant she wanted something specific and had already decided the answer should be yes. Of course. She closed the door behind her and sat in the chair across from his desk, a move that signaled this was personal, not professional. I wanted to thank you, she said. For what? For giving Natalie a chance. She called me last night and talked for 45 minutes about everything except you, which means she's thinking about you quite a bit. Daniel felt his face warm. Eleanor, I appreciate what you were trying to do, but you think I'm meddling in your personal life. You are meddling in my personal life. Yes, Eleanor agreed calmly. I am. And normally I wouldn't, but I've watched you spend 3 years putting everyone else first. Your daughter, your work, your responsibilities. You're excellent at taking care of others and terrible at taking care of yourself. That's not, it is. And Natalie is exactly the same way. She throws herself into work and causes and other people's problems because focusing on her own life feels too vulnerable. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. So yes, I meddled because I love you both and I thought you might be good for each other. Was I wrong? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Eleanor had a way of cutting through his defenses with uncomfortable accuracy. I don't know yet, he finally said, but I'm willing to find out. Eleanor smiled. That's all I hoped for. Now, I'll stop meddling and let you two figure it out yourselves. Just be patient with her. She's been hurt before, and she protects herself by staying busy. I can be patient. I know. It's one of your best qualities. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. Also, the Thai place she's taking you to? Get the massaman curry. Trust me. After she left, Daniel sat for a moment processing the conversation. Eleanor's meddling should have annoyed him, but instead he felt oddly touched. When was the last time someone had cared enough about his happiness to actively interfere? That evening, Daniel picked up Natalie at precisely 7 o'clock. Her apartment was in a renovated building in Logan Square, third-floor walk-up. When she answered the door, he immediately understood her warnings about the unpacking situation. Boxes were everywhere, stacked against walls, sitting half-opened in corners, labeled with increasingly creative variations of miscellaneous. The furniture was nice, but clearly not yet arranged with any real intention. It looked like someone had moved in yesterday, not 2 months ago. Told you it was bad, Natalie said, grabbing her jacket. It's not bad. It's aspirational. That's a polite way of saying it's a disaster. I was trying to be generous. She laughed and pulled the door shut behind her. The Thai place is about 15 minutes from here. I hope you're hungry. The restaurant was small and unpretentious, the kind of place locals knew about, but tourists never found. They were seated at a corner table, and Natalie immediately ordered spring rolls and sauté for the table. I'm assuming you trust me on food choices? She asked. After that coffee recommendation? Absolutely. When the waitress returned for their main orders, Natalie got the drunken noodles. Daniel, remembering Eleanor's advice, ordered the massaman curry. Good choice, Natalie said approvingly. That's my second favorite thing here. What's your first? The panang curry. But I'm saving that for when you take me to dinner. Presumptuous. Strategic. If we keep taking turns, I get to try more things on the menu. The food arrived quickly, and it was exactly as good as promised. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing as easily as it had on Sunday. Natalie asked about Lily's week. Had the apology letter helped with the Connor situation? Daniel explained that Lily and Connor were now apparently best friends after Lily had shared her snack with him. Kid friendships are wild, he said. One day they're enemies, the next they're inseparable. I remember that. In 4th grade, I punched a girl named Rebecca for saying my mom wasn't a real businesswoman because she was a woman. We were best friends by 5th grade. Did you apologize? Absolutely not. She apologized to me. Then we bonded over our shared love of horses and became inseparable. Natalie smiled at the memory. Wonder what happened to her. You could look her up. I could, but sometimes it's nice to leave certain friendships in the past where they were perfect. They talked about Natalie's work week, a breakthrough meeting with a manufacturing company that had finally agreed to reduce their carbon emissions. Small victory, but meaningful. Daniel shared that his team had landed a major client, which meant more work, but also more job security. Eleanor seemed pleased, he said carefully, not mentioning their earlier conversation. I'm sure she was. That woman loves winning. Natalie paused. She also texted me this morning to stop bothering you about tonight's plans, which was funny because I hadn't told her we were getting dinner. How did she know? She's psychic, or she has one of us bugged. Either way, it's unnerving. Daniel laughed. She cornered me this afternoon to tell me to be patient with you. She said what? That you protect yourself by staying busy, and I should be patient. Natalie looked mortified. I'm going to kill her. Don't. She wasn't wrong. Natalie set down her fork. I'm sorry. This is exactly why I avoided dating in Chicago. My mother has no boundaries. I don't mind. She cares about you. That's not a bad thing. It's embarrassing. Only if you let it be. Daniel leaned forward. For what it's worth, I think you're worth being patient for. Natalie looked at him, something vulnerable crossing her face. You barely know me. True, but I'm learning, and so far, everything I'm learning makes me want to keep learning more. She smiled, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. You're smoother than you look, Daniel Harper. I have hidden depths, apparently. They finished dinner and walked out into the cool evening. The street was quiet, just a few people passing by, the city settling into its nighttime rhythm. Want to walk for a bit? Natalie asked. There's a park a few blocks from here. Sure. They walked side by side, not quite touching, but close enough that Daniel was aware of every movement she made. The park was small, just a patch of green with a few benches and a playground that sat empty in the darkness. They sat on a bench facing the playground. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. A dog barked. The normal symphony of city life. Can I ask you something personal? Natalie said. We're past the point of asking permission. She smiled. Fair. What happened with Lily's mom? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm curious. Daniel had known this question would come eventually. Her name was Sarah. We met in college, dated on and off for years, got married young because it seemed like the thing you were supposed to do. The pregnancy wasn't planned, but we were both excited. Or I thought we both were. He paused, gathering the words. After Lily was born, Sarah struggled. Postpartum depression, anxiety, feeling trapped. I tried to help, but I didn't know how. I was working long hours, exhausted, probably not as present as I should have been. And Sarah, she met someone who made her feel like herself again. So she left. Just like that? Just like that. One day she was there, the next she'd packed a bag and moved to Portland. She called a few days later to say she wasn't coming back. The divorce was finalized 4 months after that. Natalie was quiet for a moment. Does she see Lily? Twice a year. Christmas and Lily's birthday. She sends cards sometimes and pays child support, but mostly she's just gone. I'm sorry. It's okay. It was hard at first, but we adjusted. And honestly, Lily's better off with stability than with someone who doesn't want to be there. That's a mature way to look at it. I've had 3 years to process. Ask me year 1, and I would have said something much less mature. Natalie shifted on the bench, turning to face him more directly. My last relationship ended because he wanted kids and I wasn't sure I did. We spent 2 years trying to compromise on something you can't really compromise on. Finally, he gave me an ultimatum. Commit to starting a family or he was leaving. What did you choose? I told him I needed time to think about it. He said time was the one thing we didn't have. He was 38 and wanted to be a young dad. So he left. She looked away. Part of me wonders if I made the wrong choice, if I was just scared and sabotaged something good. Do you think that's what happened? I don't know. I liked him. Loved him even. But I couldn't picture the life he wanted. Every time I tried to imagine it, I just felt this crushing sense of obligation. She met Daniel's eyes. Does that make me selfish? It makes you honest. Better to admit you're not ready than to have kids and resent them. That's what I tell myself. But it's lonely, being 33 and single and watching everyone else build families. Daniel understood that loneliness. For what it's worth, you don't seem selfish to me. You seem like someone who knows herself well enough to be honest about what she wants. Or doesn't want. Or doesn't want yet. People change. What you couldn't imagine at 30 might feel different at 35 or 40. Maybe. Natalie pulled her jacket tighter. Sorry, this got heavy. I don't mind heavy beats superficial small talk. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the empty playground sway slightly in the wind. Finally, Natalie spoke again. I should probably tell you something. Daniel's stomach tightened. Okay? My ex texted me yesterday. Marcus. The one who wanted kids. He's moving back to Chicago for work and asked if we could get coffee. Are you going to? I don't know. Part of me thinks I should, just to have closure. We didn't exactly end things cleanly, but part of me thinks it's a bad idea. What's the bad idea part say? That seeing him will just confuse things. That I'm finally in a good place and reopening that door might mess it up. She looked at Daniel. What do you think I should do? It was a test of some kind. Daniel could feel it. The wrong answer here could end whatever was beginning between them. I think you should do whatever gives you peace, he said carefully. If you need closure, get it. If you think it'll just complicate things, don't. But don't make the decision based on what I want. Make it based on what you need. Natalie studied his face. You're not worried I'll get back together with him? Are you planning to? No? Then I'm not worried. You're very trusting. I'm very aware that trying to control other people's choices never ends well. Daniel smiled slightly. Plus, we've been on exactly 2.5 dates. I don't have grounds to be possessive. 2.5? Friday was half because we both planned to leave early. Sunday and tonight count as full dates. Natalie laughed. That's very precise math. I'm a project coordinator. Precision is what I do. She reached over and took his hand. It was the first time they deliberately touched, and Daniel felt the contact like electricity. Her hand was smaller than his, cold from the night air, but her grip was firm. For the record, she said, I'm glad my mother meddled. Me too. They sat there for a while longer, hands linked, not talking. Finally, Natalie shivered. We should probably go. It's getting cold. Daniel walked her back to her car, parked near the restaurant. They stood on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. I had a really good time tonight, Natalie said. So did I. Want to do it again? Not just coffee or dinner, but, I don't know, something different? Like what? There's an architecture walking tour this Saturday along the river. It's probably nerdy and boring, but I love that stuff. Want to come? I'd love to. What time? 10 in the morning. We could get brunch after. It's a date, a full date, not a half one. Natalie smiled. Noted for your precision records. She stepped closer and kissed his cheek. Quick and light, but intentional. Then she got in her car before Daniel could react. He watched her drive away, his hand unconsciously touching the spot where her lips had been. His phone buzzed. A text from Natalie. See you Saturday. Don't wear uncomfortable shoes. We'll be walking for hours. Daniel smiled and replied, Noted. Sleep well. As he drove home, he realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this light, this hopeful. Dating had always seemed like another responsibility to manage, another area where he might fail. But with Natalie, it felt different. It felt like possibility. His phone rang as he pulled into his parking spot. Amanda. Hey, he answered. So, his sister said without preamble, how was the date? How do you know I was on a date? Because Lily told me you were having dinner with Dad's friend Natalie, and you were nervous about it. Her words, not mine. I wasn't nervous. You changed your shirt 4 times on Sunday. Lily noticed. Daniel sighed. It was good. Really good. Good enough for a 3rd date? 4th, technically. We're doing an architecture tour on Saturday. Amanda laughed. An architecture tour? Daniel, that's the nerdiest thing I've ever heard. She likes architecture. And you like her. It wasn't a question. Daniel didn't answer right away, pulling his keys from the ignition and gathering his things. Yeah, he finally admitted. I think I do. Good. It's about time you let someone in. Don't start. Eleanor already gave me the speech about taking care of myself. Then maybe you should listen. Amanda's voice softened. You deserve this, you know. Happiness, partnership, someone who actually shows up. I know. Do you? Because you've spent 3 years convincing yourself that being alone is noble. It's not. It's just lonely. When did you get so wise? I've always been this wise. You just never listened to me. Daniel smiled despite himself. Thanks, Amanda. Anytime. Now go inside and get some sleep. You have another date to prepare for. He hung up and walked into his apartment, quiet and dark. Lily was asleep at Amanda's for the night, a planned sleepover that had become a regular Wednesday tradition. The place felt emptier than usual, without her chaos and energy. Daniel made himself tea and sat at the kitchen table, replaying the evening. Natalie's confession about her ex, the way she'd taken his hand, the kiss on his cheek that still seemed to burn against his skin. He pulled out his phone and looked at her last text. Then, impulsively, he typed, I'm really glad we're doing this, whatever this is. Her response came quickly. Me too, and for what it's worth, I'm not going to see Marcus. I don't need closure with him. I just needed to know you wouldn't freak out about the possibility. Daniel's chest tightened with something warm. I'm not the freaking out type. I'm learning that, she replied. It's refreshing. Most guys would have gotten weird about the ex thing. I'm not most guys. No, she wrote back. You're really not. Good night, Daniel. Good night, Natalie. He sat there for a while longer, tea growing cold in his cup, and let himself feel something he'd forbidden for years. Hope. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of November day that felt like Chicago's last gift before winter settled in for good. Daniel woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom window and the sound of Lily singing off-key in the kitchen. She'd insisted on making breakfast, a declaration that filled him with equal parts pride and dread. He found her standing on a step stool at the stove, carefully flipping pancakes that were somehow both burned and undercooked. Morning, chef, he said, moving to stand beside her. I'm making you breakfast because you have a date, Lily announced, wielding the spatula with alarming confidence. Amanda said dates are special and you should eat good food before them. Amanda said that? She also said you should wear the blue shirt because it makes your eyes look nice, but I think the gray one is better. Daniel smiled, accepting a plate of questionable pancakes. I'll take your fashion advice under consideration. They ate together at the kitchen table, Lily chattering about her sleepover at Amanda's. Apparently they'd stayed up past midnight watching movies and eating popcorn, which explained her current sugar-fueled energy. So, where are you going with Natalie? Lily asked, drowning her pancakes in syrup. An architecture tour along the river. Lily wrinkled her nose. That sounds boring. Probably, but Natalie likes it, so I'm going. That's what you do when you like someone? Boring stuff they think is fun? Sometimes. You also do fun stuff together, but part of caring about someone means being interested in what interests them. Lily considered this seriously. Connor likes dinosaurs. I don't really like dinosaurs, but I listened to him talk about pterodactyls for like an hour yesterday. See, you already understand. Does that mean Connor and I are dating? Daniel nearly choked on his coffee. No, absolutely not. You're 7. Nobody's dating anybody. But you said caring about someone means that's different. You're friends. Friends care about each other's interests. Dating is for adults. But you and Natalie are friends too. We're, different kinds of friends. What kind? Daniel was saved from answering by his phone buzzing. A text from Natalie. Running 10 minutes late. Coffee emergency? See you at the meeting point at 10:10? He replied, No problem. I'll be the one in the gray shirt. Blue shirt, Lily corrected, reading over his shoulder. Trust me. 2 hours later, Daniel stood at the Riverwalk meeting point, wearing the blue shirt and wondering if a 7-year-old actually had better fashion sense than him. The tour guide, an enthusiastic woman named Patricia, who looked about 60 and wore a badge that read Chicago Architecture Foundation, was already gathering the group. About 15 people had shown up, mostly couples and a few older tourists with expensive cameras. Daniel checked his phone. 10:12. No sign of Natalie. Then he saw her jogging toward the group, coffee cup in hand, hair slightly disheveled. Sorry, she said breathlessly, reaching him. The line at the coffee shop was insane. You're fine. We haven't started yet. She looked at him and smiled. Blue shirt, good choice. My daughter's recommendation. Smart kid. Patricia called for everyone's attention, and the tour began. They walked along the river while she pointed out buildings, explaining their architectural significance with the kind of passion that suggested she'd been doing this for decades. The Wrigley Building, completed in 1924, Patricia announced, gesturing dramatically. Notice the terracotta cladding that gives it that distinctive white appearance. At night, it's illuminated by floodlights, a revolutionary concept at the time. Daniel glanced at Natalie, who was listening with genuine fascination, occasionally taking photos with her phone. You really love this stuff, he observed quietly. Architecture tells you everything about a city's values, she said. What they chose to build, what they preserved, what they tore down. It's history made visible. They continued walking, Patricia leading them past the Tribune Tower, the Marina City Towers that looked like concrete corn cobs, the sleek glass facades of newer construction. Natalie asked questions, intelligent, specific questions about design choices and historical context. Daniel mostly listened, content to watch her engage with something she clearly loved. At one point, Patricia stopped in front of a relatively unremarkable office building. This, she said, is where the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 allegedly started. Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern, or so the legend goes. The fire destroyed over 3 square miles of the city, but what rose from those ashes became one of the greatest architectural movements in American history. That's the thing about destruction, Natalie said softly, more to Daniel than the group. Sometimes it creates space for something better. There was weight in those words, and Daniel wondered if she was still talking about architecture. The tour lasted 2 hours. By the time Patricia wrapped up her final commentary about modern preservation efforts, Daniel's feet hurt, and he was genuinely impressed by how much there was to know about buildings he'd walked past 1,000 times without really seeing. Thank you for coming, Natalie said as they walked away from the dispersing group. I know that was probably incredibly boring. It wasn't boring, it was educational. That's what people say when something is boring, but they're too polite to admit it. Okay, parts of it were boring, Daniel conceded, but watching you get excited about flying buttresses and load-bearing walls was worth it. She laughed. I'm a nerd. I accept this about myself. It's a good quality. Passion is underrated. They grabbed brunch at a cafe overlooking the river. Mimosas and eggs, Benedict, and comfortable conversation that felt increasingly natural. Natalie told him about growing up in Chicago, how she'd spent her teenage years exploring the city while her mother worked. I'd take the train downtown and just walk for hours, she said, cutting into her eggs. Looking at buildings, imagining the lives of the people who designed them. It was my escape. From what? From being the scholarship kid at a private school where everyone else had family money. From missing my dad. From the loneliness of being an only child with a workaholic parent. She paused. Architecture became my constant. Buildings don't leave, they don't change suddenly. They're just there. Until they're torn down. Even then, they leave something behind, a footprint, a memory, evidence they mattered. Daniel thought about his own need for control, his labeled apartment, his carefully structured routines. Maybe they weren't so different. Can I ask you something? He said. Always. Why did you really come back to Chicago? You said it was your mom's health scare, but I get the feeling there's more to it. Natalie set down her fork, considering the question. I was burning out in DC, out and fighting the same battles over and over, watching progress get erased every time the administration changed. I started having panic attacks before meetings, stopped sleeping well. My therapist suggested I was experiencing moral injury, like what soldiers get, but from watching the work you care about get destroyed repeatedly. That sounds awful. It was. And then my mom had her heart incident, just a scare, turned out to be nothing serious. But it made me realize I was sacrificing my life for work that might not even matter in 5 years. So I came home, took a lower paying job at a nonprofit, decided to try building something more local, more sustainable. She met his eyes. I'm trying to learn how to let myself want things that aren't related to saving the world. Like architecture tours? Like architecture tours and brunch, and she hesitated. This, whatever this is. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. For someone who protects herself by staying busy, you're doing a pretty good job of being present. I'm trying. It's harder than it looks. They finished brunch and walked along the river, the afternoon sun warming the air. Other couples strolled past, families with children, joggers, and cyclists. Normal weekend life in a city that kept moving regardless of individual dramas. So what now? Natalie asked as they walked. We've done coffee, dinner, and a nerdy tour. Are we officially dating, or are we still in the exploratory phase? Daniel smiled. What do you want? I asked you first. Okay. I think we're dating. I think we have been since that second coffee. The rest has just been figuring out the details. Direct answer. I appreciate that. Natalie squeezed his hand. I think we're dating too, which means I should probably meet Lily properly. Not just a brief dinner cameo, but actually spend time with her. She'd like that. She's already asked about you 3 times this week. What did you tell her? That you're someone I'm getting to know, someone I like spending time with. How did she react? She wanted to know if that meant you'd be coming to Thanksgiving dinner. Natalie stopped walking. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks. I know. I told her it was too soon to invite you, that we're taking things slow. Are we? Taking things slow? Daniel turned to face her fully. They were standing near the railing overlooking the water, the city rising up behind them in steel and glass and stone. I have a 7-year-old daughter who's already lost one parent. I can't introduce people into her life casually. So yes, we need to go slow where she's concerned, but that doesn't mean I want to go slow with you. Natalie studied his face. What does that mean? It means I'd like to see you more often. Not just planned dates, but spontaneous things. It means I want to introduce you to Lily properly, but on a timeline that makes sense for her. It means, he paused, making sure of the words. It means I'm all in on seeing where this goes, as long as you are. I'm all in, Natalie said quietly, which terrifies me, honestly. But I'm in. Daniel kissed her. It was their first real kiss, not a quick peck goodbye, but a genuine, intentional kiss there on the riverwalk with the city moving around them. She tasted like mimosas and possibility, and when they finally pulled apart, she was smiling. Took you long enough, she said. I was waiting for the right moment. And overlooking the Chicago River with tourists walking by was the right moment? Apparently. They walked back to where they'd parked, hands linked, neither speaking. Sometimes silence said more than conversation. When they reached Natalie's car, she turned to him. About Thanksgiving. You don't have to. I want to. If the invitation's genuine, I'd like to meet Lily properly, and holidays seem like good opportunities for that. Are you sure? It's usually just me, Lily, and my sister Amanda's family. Very low-key. Low-key sounds perfect. Better than the elaborate production my mother's planning. She's invited half her company. You're welcome to escape to our dinner instead. I might take you up on that. She kissed him again, quick and sweet. I'll call you tomorrow. I'll be waiting. Daniel drove home with the radio off, replaying the day in his mind. The tour, the brunch, the kiss by the river. The way Natalie had said she was all in, even though it terrified her. He understood that terror. Opening yourself up to someone meant accepting the possibility they might leave. But it also meant accepting the possibility they might stay. When he got home, Lily ambushed him at the door. How was the date? It was good. Just good? Really good. Did you kiss her? Daniel felt his face heat up. Where did that question come from? Amanda said that's what people do on dates. She said you'd probably be weird about it if I asked. Amanda talks too much. So did you? Yes. I kissed her. Lily made a face. Gross. You asked. I know, but I didn't think you'd actually tell me. She bounced on her heels. Is she coming to Thanksgiving? Probably. Would that be okay with you? Yeah, can I sit next to her? We'll see. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work, parenting, and stolen moments with Natalie. They saw each other when they could, quick coffee meetings before work, lunch on Tuesday, dinner on Thursday when Amanda agreed to watch Lily. Each interaction felt like building something, brick by brick, the way you constructed anything meant to last. But on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, everything changed. Daniel was at his desk finishing quarterly reports when his phone rang. An unknown number, which he normally ignored, but something made him answer. Hello? Daniel, it's Marcus Chen, Natalie's friend. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. How did you get my number? From Natalie's phone. Look, I know this is strange, but I need to talk to you about her. I don't think that's appropriate. Just hear me out, please. I'm at the cafe on Clark and Diversey. Can you meet me? It's important. Every instinct told Daniel to hang up, but the urgency in Marcus's voice stopped him. Fine, I'll be there in 20 minutes. He told Eleanor he had a personal emergency and left. The cafe was a bland corporate chain, all generic music and the smell of over-roasted coffee. Marcus sat at a corner table. Asian American, probably late 30s, expensive suit, the kind of polished appearance that spoke of success and self-awareness. Daniel approached cautiously. This better be important. Thank you for coming, Marcus gestured to the seat across from him. I know this is weird, but I needed to talk to you before Thanksgiving. About what? About Natalie, and about me, and about the conversation we had yesterday. Daniel felt his stomach drop. She told me she wasn't going to see you. She wasn't planning to, but I showed up at her office, ambushed her basically. We talked for 2 hours. And? Marcus leaned back, studying Daniel. She told me about you, said she was seeing someone new, someone stable and kind, someone who has a daughter. Why are you telling me this? Because I asked her to reconsider, to give us another chance. The cafe seemed to shrink around them. Daniel's hands curled into fists under the table. And what did she say? She said she needed to think about it. The words hit like a physical blow. Daniel stood abruptly. I don't need to hear this. Wait. Marcus held up a hand. That's not why I called you here. I called because after I left, I realized something. I realized I was being selfish. Daniel sat back down slowly. Natalie and I had something good, Marcus continued, but we wanted different things. I wanted a traditional family, wife, kids, white picket fence. She wanted to change the world. Neither of us was wrong, but we were wrong for each other. He paused. When I heard she was seeing someone who already had a kid, I got jealous, thought maybe she'd changed her mind about family, just not with me. So I pushed. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw her face when she talked about you, and I haven't seen her look like that in years, maybe ever. Marcus smiled sadly. She's scared, man, terrified of letting herself want something that might disappear. But she wants it. She wants you. Then why did she say she'd think about it? Because that's what Natalie does when she's afraid. She intellectualizes, creates scenarios and contingencies, protects herself by keeping options open. Marcus stood. I'm going back to Seattle tomorrow. I'm not going to pursue her, but she needs to know that she can choose you without wondering what if about me. That's why I wanted to talk to you, so you'd understand what you're up against. What am I up against? Her fear, her history of being left, her belief that good things don't last. Marcus extended his hand. Don't give up on her. She's worth the fight. Daniel shook his hand, confused and uncertain. Why are you helping me? Because I loved her enough to want her to be happy, even if it's not with me. After Marcus left, Daniel sat alone in the cafe for a long time. His phone buzzed with the text from Natalie. Lunch tomorrow before Thanksgiving? I need to talk to you about something. His hand shook as he typed back. Sure. Where and when? Noon, that sandwich place near your office? See you then? Daniel went home in a daze. Lily was at Amanda's again. Another planned sleepover before the holiday. The apartment felt hollow without her noise. He paced his living room, replaying Marcus's words. She needs to think about it. She's scared. Don't give up on her. His phone rang. Amanda. Hey, I just wanted to confirm tomorrow's plans. Wait, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Daniel, I can hear it in your voice. What happened? So he told her. About Marcus showing up, about Natalie needing to think about it, about the lunch tomorrow that felt like a potential ending. Oh, Amanda said quietly when he finished. That's complicated. Thank you for that insightful analysis. I'm serious. This is actually really complicated. She has history with this guy, real history. You can't compete with that. I don't want to compete. I want her to choose me because she wants to, not because I manipulated her into it. Then you have to let her make her choice and accept whatever she decides. What if she chooses him? Then she wasn't ready for what you're offering, and you and Lily deserve someone who's sure. Daniel knew she was right, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. He barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Natalie's face, heard her saying she needed to think about it. By morning, he'd convinced himself that lunch would be her gentle letdown. Thanks for the past few weeks, but I'm not ready. It's not you, it's me. All the standard lines. He almost canceled, almost texted that he was sick or busy or anything to avoid the conversation. But at 11:45, he found himself walking toward the sandwich shop, heart pounding, palms sweating like a teenager before prom. Natalie was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily. When she saw him, something complicated crossed her face. "Hi," she said as he sat down. "Hi." They ordered sandwiches neither of them would eat, making small talk about the weather and Thanksgiving plans. Finally, Natalie set down her water glass. "I need to tell you something." "I know, Marcus called me." Her eyes widened. "He what?" "Yesterday. He told me about your conversation, about him asking you to reconsider." "Daniel, I can explain." "You don't have to. He explained it for you, said you needed to think about it." Natalie looked stricken. "That's not... I mean, technically, yes, but..." "It's okay, Natalie. Really." Daniel forced himself to stay calm. "I understand. You have history with him, real history, and I'm just some guy your mom set you up with a few weeks ago." "You're not just some guy. Then what am I?" She was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the lunch crowd buzzed with conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine. Finally, she spoke. "You're the first person in 5 years who made me want to stop running," she said quietly. "You're the reason I couldn't sleep last night, the reason I told Marcus no." Daniel's heart stopped. "You told him no?" "Of course I told him no. I told him no 2 hours into our conversation, but he kept pushing, kept making arguments about our shared history and compatibility, and all these logical reasons why we made sense together. And for a minute, just a minute, I wondered if he was right, if I was making a mistake choosing uncertainty with you over certainty with him. And then I realized that what I felt with Marcus was comfortable, safe, predictable, but what I feel with you is alive." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "You scare me, Daniel Harper. You and your daughter and your labeled apartment and your patient way of waiting for me to figure my life out. You scare me because you make me want things I've spent years convincing myself I don't need." "What things?" "Partnership, family, a life that's about more than just work and causes and proving I'm enough." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Marcus was right that I'm terrified, but he was wrong about why. I'm not afraid of you leaving. I'm afraid of wanting you so much that it destroys me if you do." Daniel moved around the table and pulled her up, holding her tightly. She buried her face against his shoulder and he felt her shaking. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Not unless you tell me to go." "Don't go." "I won't." They stood there for a long moment, ignoring the curious looks from other diners. Finally, Natalie pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry I made you worry. Marcus shouldn't have called you." "I'm glad he did. It made me realize something." "What?" "That I'm all in too. Not just casually dating, not just seeing where it goes. I want this. Us. For real. Natalie smiled through her tears. For real? For real. Which means you're definitely coming to Thanksgiving tomorrow and meeting Lily properly. And probably June dealing with my sister's interrogation about your intentions. Your sister's going to interrogate me? Oh, absolutely. Amanda takes her protective duties very seriously. Should I be worried? Terrified. She once made Lily's kindergarten teacher cry. Natalie laughed, the sound watery but genuine. Good thing I'm used to hostile questioning. I've testified before Congress. This will be worse, trust me. They finally sat back down and actually ate their sandwiches, the tension broken. Natalie told him about her mother's elaborate Thanksgiving plans, which apparently involved catered food and a seating chart. I told her I was going to your family dinner instead, Natalie said. She was not pleased. She'll survive. She said, and I quote, "If you're serious enough about this man to skip my Thanksgiving, you better be planning to marry him." Daniel choked on his sandwich. She said that? She's nothing if not direct. What did you say? I said it's been 4 weeks and maybe we should focus on getting through the holidays before planning a wedding. Natalie smiled. But between you and me, I didn't hate the idea as much as I probably should have. Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. For the record, I didn't hate it either. They finished lunch and walked back toward Daniel's office building. On the sidewalk, Natalie stopped him. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being patient. For not running when things got complicated. For being exactly who you are." "Back at you." She kissed him there on the sidewalk with the lunch crowd streaming past, and Daniel thought about Marcus's words. Don't give up on her. She's worth the fight. He didn't know if it had been a fight exactly, but he knew Natalie was worth whatever it took. "So tomorrow," Natalie said when they finally pulled apart. "What should I bring? Wine? Dessert? Just yourself?" "Amanda's handling food. My only job is to show up and not burn the turkey." "You're cooking the turkey?" "I'm supervising the turkey. There's a difference." "If you say so." She kissed him one more time. "I'll see you tomorrow. 2 o'clock?" 2 o'clock. "And Natalie?" "Yeah?" "I'm really glad you chose this. Us, the scary thing." She smiled. "Me too." Daniel watched her walk away, then headed back to his office. Eleanor was waiting by his desk. "So?" she asked. "So what?" "Don't play coy. Natalie called me an hour ago in tears saying she'd almost ruined everything, but you were perfect and she didn't deserve you." Daniel smiled despite himself. "We're good, better than good. She's coming to Thanksgiving." "Good. Because I already told my entire staff that my daughter is dating one of my best employees, and if anyone has a problem with it, they can take it up with HR. "Eleanor, I'm meddling again, I know, but I'm also protecting you both from office gossip. Consider it my Thanksgiving gift." "Thank you, I think." She patted his shoulder. "You're good for her, Daniel. Don't let her sabotage it when she gets scared." "I won't." Eleanor walked away, and Daniel sat at his desk, unable to stop smiling. His phone buzzed, a text from Lily, obviously dictated to Amanda. "Aunt Amanda says Natalie is coming tomorrow. Can I show her my room?" He replied, "Of course you can." Another buzz. "Can I show her my rock collection?" "Yes." "And my drawings?" "All of them." "Dad, this is 7-year-old Lily, not Amanda. I'm very excited. Also, we made pie and I ate some of it. Okay, a lot of it. Okay, all the whipped cream. Sorry." Daniel laughed and typed back, "We'll make more whipped cream tomorrow. Love you, kiddo." "Love you too." "Is Natalie going to be my new mom?" His fingers froze over the keyboard. Finally, he wrote, "Let's take things one step at a time, okay? Right now, she's my friend who I like very much. We'll figure out the rest later." "Okay, but I hope she stays." "Me too, sunshine, me too." That night, Daniel lay in bed thinking about everything that had happened in 4 weeks. The blind date he'd almost canceled, the coffee shop conversation, the architecture tour, the moment by the river, Marcus's unexpected intervention, Natalie's tears in the sandwich shop. It all felt impossible and inevitable at once, like a building rising from nothing. First foundation, then framework, then walls and windows, and finally something solid enough to withstand storms. They weren't there yet. Still building, still figuring out load-bearing walls and structural integrity. But for the first time since Sarah left, Daniel could picture something beyond just getting through the day. He could picture a future, and it included Natalie. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from Natalie. "Can't sleep. Keep thinking about tomorrow. Nervous about meeting your family properly." He replied, "They'll love you. Lily already does, and she's the toughest critic." "What if I say something wrong?" "You won't. And even if you do, we'll laugh about it later. That's what families do." A pause, then, "Families. I like the sound of that." "Me too. Now get some sleep. Big day tomorrow." "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Natalie." Daniel set his phone down and closed his eyes, finally ready to sleep. Tomorrow would bring new complications. Introducing Natalie to his sister, watching her interact with Lily in a real way, navigating the strange territory between dating and something more permanent. But tonight, he let himself feel something pure and uncomplicated. Happiness. And that, he thought as sleep finally came, was more than enough. Thanksgiving morning arrived with unexpected snow, light flurries that dusted Chicago's streets with the season's first white coating. Daniel stood at his kitchen window watching it fall while the turkey roasted in the oven, filling the apartment with the smell of herbs and butter. Lily pressed her face against the glass beside him, breath fogging the window. "Do you think Natalie likes snow?" she asked. "I don't know. We haven't discussed snow preferences yet." "You should ask her. It's important." "More important than whether she likes turkey or ham?" "Way more important. Snow is magical. Turkey is just food." Daniel smiled and ruffled her hair. She'd been vibrating with nervous energy since waking up, changing her outfit 3 times before settling on a purple dress with leggings. Now she kept checking the clock every 5 minutes. "She's not coming for 2 more hours, Daniel reminded her. "I know. But what if she gets here early? What if she's already on her way and hits traffic? What if—" "Lily, breathe." She took an exaggerated breath, then looked up at him with those 2 perceptive green eyes. "Are you nervous too?" "A little." "Because Aunt Amanda's going to ask her a million questions?" "Partly." "Because you really like her and you want us to like her too?" Daniel knelt down to his daughter's eye level. "Yes, I really like her. But I also need you to know something important. No matter what happens with Natalie, whether she becomes part of our family or just stays my friend, you and I are solid. You're my priority, always." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "I know, Dad, but I think she's going to stay. She looks at you the way you look at me when I do something good." "How's that?" "Like you're proud and happy and a little bit surprised all at once." Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds, Daniel thought. When did you get so wise? "I've always been wise. You just don't always listen." That sounded suspiciously like something Amanda would say. Speaking of which, his sister arrived at noon with her husband Tom and their 2 kids, 9-year-old Marcus and 6-year-old Sophie. She also brought 3 pies, a casserole dish of sweet potatoes, and an expression that told Daniel the interrogation was already forming in her mind. "So," Amanda said, setting down her pies with deliberate care, "Natalie's really coming." "Yes, she's really coming. And you're serious about her?" "We're dating. It's been a month." A month is long enough to know if something's real. Amanda pulled him into the hallway, lowering her voice. "Are you sure about this? Bringing her into Lily's life?" "No, but I'm sure I want to try." Amanda studied his face, then sighed. "Okay, but if she hurts you or Lily, I reserve the right to make her life very difficult." "Noted." "I'm serious, Daniel. You've been through enough. Lily's been through enough. This woman better be worth it." "She is." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because Amanda's expression softened. "Okay then. I'll try to behave." "Try hard." The doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock. Lily sprinted to answer it before Daniel could move, flinging the door open to reveal Natalie standing in the hallway with snow in her hair and her arms full of packages. "Hi," Lily said breathlessly. "Hi yourself." Natalie smiled, balancing her load. "I brought wine for the adults and cookies for everyone else. Also, your dad said not to bring anything, but I'm constitutionally incapable of showing up empty-handed." "I like cookies," Lily announced, taking one of the boxes. "Come in, you can meet everyone." Natalie stepped inside and Daniel took the wine from her hands. She looked beautiful, Dark jeans, a burgundy sweater, hair loose around her shoulders. But more than that, she looked nervous. The kind of nervous he recognized from his own mirror that morning. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Terrified, but okay. Amanda promised to behave. "That's not reassuring." He kissed her quickly. "You'll be fine." Amanda appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked Natalie up and down with the assessing gaze of an older sister who took her protective duties seriously. "So you're Natalie. And you're Amanda. Daniel's told me a lot about you." "I doubt he's told you the embarrassing stories. I'm saving those for later." Amanda extended her hand. They shook, and Daniel watched his sister's expression shift from skeptical to cautiously approving. "Thanks for the wine. We're going to need it." Tom emerged from the living room where he'd been wrangling the kids. He was a gentle giant of a man, 6'4", broad shoulders, with the kind of calm demeanor that came from teaching high school math to teenagers. "Tom," he introduced himself, shaking Natalie's hand. "Welcome to the chaos." The kids thundered in, Marcus and Sophie demanding to know who the new person was, Lily proudly announcing that this was Natalie and she was Dad's girlfriend, and everyone had to be nice to her. "Girlfriend?" Natalie repeated, glancing at Daniel with amusement. "I may have mentioned that word once or twice," Daniel admitted. "Just once or twice. Maybe 3 times. 4 at most." Lily tugged Natalie's hand. "Want to see my room? I have a rock collection and drawings and a stuffed unicorn named Princess Sparkle." "I would love to see all of those things," Natalie said seriously. "Lead the way." They disappeared down the hallway, leaving Daniel with his sister and brother-in-law. "She seems nice," Tom offered diplomatically. "She's more than nice," Amanda said, "but I reserve judgment until I've actually talked to her." "You just talked to her." "That was a greeting, not a conversation. There's a difference." Daniel escaped to check on the turkey, which was browning nicely and only slightly behind schedule. Through the doorway, he could hear Lily's excited chatter and Natalie's responses, genuine interest, not just polite adult talking to child sounds. 20 minutes later, they emerged from Lily's room. Natalie had somehow acquired a plastic tiara and was wearing it without apparent self-consciousness. "Princess Lily has declared me an honorary member of the royal court," Natalie explained, catching Daniel's amused expression. "The tiara suits you." "I'm keeping it." Amanda called everyone to help set the table. It was controlled chaos, Daniel directing traffic, Tom corralling the kids, Amanda orchestrating the food transfer from kitchen to dining room with military precision. Natalie jumped in without being asked, finding serving spoons and filling water glasses and fitting into the flow like she'd done this before. They finally sat down around Daniel's dining table, expanded with a folding table extension and slightly wobbly but functional. Daniel carved the turkey while Amanda served sides, everyone talking over each other in the comfortable noise of family. "So Natalie," Amanda said once everyone had full plates, "what exactly do you do?" Daniel said something about environmental policy, but that's vague. "I work for a nonprofit that holds corporations accountable to their environmental commitments," Natalie explained. "Basically, if a company publicly promises to reduce emissions or use sustainable materials, we track whether they actually do it. When they don't, we publish reports and push for consequences." Marcus, Amanda's 9-year-old, perked up. "Like environmental police?" "That's what I said," Lily exclaimed. "Sort of," Natalie agreed, "though we don't have arrest powers. We just make it really embarrassing for companies to lie." "Have you made any companies get arrested?" Marcus asked. "We've helped get some fined by regulatory agencies. Last year we exposed a manufacturing plant that was dumping chemicals into a river. The EPA fined them $12 million. "Whoa!" both kids said simultaneously. Tom leaned forward with interest. "That must be satisfying work." "When it works, yes. When it doesn't, it's incredibly frustrating. But I'd rather fail trying to fix things than succeed at ignoring them." Amanda nodded approvingly. "Daniel said you worked in D.C. before this. Why'd you come back?" Here it was, the real question beneath the casual conversation. Daniel tensed slightly, but Natalie answered with the same directness she'd shown him. "I was burning out fighting federal-level battles. Every administration change erased progress, and I was starting to break under the weight of it. My mom had a health scare, and I realized I was sacrificing my life for work that might not even matter long-term. So I came home to fight smaller battles that actually stick. And how's that working out? Amanda asked. Better, slower, but better. Turns out local change is more sustainable than federal mandates that disappear with the next election. Smart, Tom said, focusing on what you can actually control. The conversation flowed through dinner, work stories, childhood memories, debates about whether stuffing should have cranberries. Lily said yes, Marcus said absolutely not. Natalie held her own with Amanda's probing questions, made Sophie laugh with an impression of a penguin, and listened to Tom's explanation of calculus problems with genuine interest. Daniel watched it all, feeling something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid to want, someone fitting into his life, into Lily's life, without forcing it. Natalie wasn't trying too hard or holding back too much. She was just herself, and somehow that was exactly right. After dinner, while the kids played in the living room and Tom handled dish duty, Amanda cornered Natalie in the kitchen. Daniel was technically checking on dessert, but he could hear every word. So, Amanda said, her voice pleasant but firm, what are your intentions with my brother? Natalie didn't miss a beat. To not hurt him. To be honest, even when it's uncomfortable. To figure out if what we have is real enough to build something lasting. That's a careful answer. It's an honest answer. I could tell you I'm madly in love and planning forever, but we've been dating a month. The truth is I really like your brother. I like his daughter. I'm terrified of messing this up because it matters to me. Amanda set down the serving spoon she'd been washing. He's been alone for 3 years. Did he tell you that? He did? Do you know why? Because Lily's mom left, and he needed to focus on being a parent. That's part of it. The other part is that Sarah destroyed his ability to trust easily. He loved her completely, and she walked away without looking back. It took him 2 years to stop blaming himself. Natalie's voice was quiet. I know what it's like to have someone walk away. My last relationship ended because he wanted kids, and I wasn't sure I did. He gave me an ultimatum, and I chose uncertainty over commitment. I've spent 2 years wondering if I made the wrong call. Did you? No. But I learned something about myself, that I'd rather be alone than build a life I don't actually want just because it's what I'm supposed to want. And what do you want? There was a long pause. Daniel held his breath. I want to stop being afraid, Natalie finally said. I want to let myself want things, partnership, family, a life that's about more than just work. Your brother makes me want those things. So do I have intentions? Yes. To show up, to try. To not run when it gets hard. Amanda was quiet for a moment. Okay then. Okay? You passed. There was a test? Of course there was a test. You're dating my little brother and getting close to my niece. Did you think I'd just let anyone waltz in without vetting them? Natalie laughed. Your brother warned me you were protective. He has no idea. This was me being nice. They emerged from the kitchen, Amanda catching Daniel's eye with a small nod that said approved. Daniel felt tension he hadn't realized he was carrying finally release. Dessert was pie, apple, pumpkin, and pecan, with ice cream and whipped cream and the kind of sugar overload that made kids hyper and adults regretful. Lily insisted on sitting between Daniel and Natalie, chattering about her school play and her rock collection and whether penguins could survive in Chicago. They have penguins at the aquarium, Natalie pointed out. But those are prisoner penguins, Lily said seriously. I mean free penguins. Fair distinction. After dessert, the kids wanted to watch a movie. Amanda suggested the adults could use the break, so they settled the children in the living room with a Disney film and retreated to the kitchen with coffee and leftover pie. So Daniel, Tom said, when are you going to admit you're in over your head with this one? I admitted that 3 weeks ago. Good man. Self-awareness is important. Natalie smiled. Am I that intimidating? You testified before Congress, Amanda said. That's inherently intimidating. I also cried during a commercial about a dog finding its owner. I contain multitudes. They talked for another hour, easy conversation that flowed between serious topics and ridiculous ones. Amanda told embarrassing stories about Daniel's teenage years. Tom shared terrible math puns. Natalie admitted she'd never learned to drive stick shift, which somehow led to a debate about whether manual transmission was dying art or good riddance. Daniel mostly listened, watching Natalie laugh at Amanda's stories and defend her position on transmission with passionate conviction. This was what he'd missed for 3 years: adult conversation, connection, the feeling of being part of something larger than just him and Lily. Eventually, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Dad, I'm tired." Daniel checked his watch. 7:30, late for her usual bedtime, but reasonable for a holiday. "Okay, sunshine, say goodnight." Lily made the rounds, hugging Amanda and Tom and her cousins. Then she stopped in front of Natalie. "Will you come back?" she asked. "Do you want me to?" "Yeah, you're nice, and you didn't make fun of Princess Sparkle." "Princess Sparkle is clearly a very important unicorn. I would never make fun of her." Natalie crouched down to Lily's level. "I'd love to come back, if your dad invites me." "He will. He really likes you." "I really like him too." Lily hugged her, quick and fierce, then ran off to brush her teeth. Natalie stood slowly, her eyes suspiciously bright. "She's wonderful," she said quietly. "She is," Daniel agreed, "and she doesn't give her approval lightly." "I'm honored then." Amanda and Tom left around 8, gathering their sleepy children and leftover pie. Amanda hugged Daniel hard at the door. "I like her," she whispered. "Don't screw this up." "I'll try not to." "And Daniel, you look happy, really happy. It's been a while since I've seen that." After they left, Daniel tucked Lily into bed. She was already half asleep, but she grabbed his hand as he was leaving. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I think Natalie should stay. Not just for tonight. Like, stay. We'll see, kiddo. It's still early." "But you want her to stay too, right?" "Yeah, I do." "Good. Because I already told her about Princess Sparkle, and now she knows too many secrets." Daniel laughed and kissed her forehead. "Good night, Lily." "Night, Dad. I love you." "Love you too, sunshine." When he came back to the living room, Natalie was washing the last of the dishes despite his protests that she was a guest. "Guest privileges ended when your daughter gave me royal court membership," she said, scrubbing a pan. "Now I'm basically family." "Is that how it works?" "According to Princess Lily's bylaws, yes." Daniel picked up a dish towel and started drying. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes before Natalie spoke. "Your family is wonderful. Amanda wasn't too hard on you?" "She was perfect, protective but fair. I respect that." Natalie handed him a clean plate. "She told me about Sarah, about what you went through." "She had no right." "She had every right. She loves you and Lily. She wanted to make sure I understood what I was getting into." "And do you?" Natalie turned off the water and faced him. "I understand that you've been hurt, that Lily's been hurt, that letting me into your lives is a risk." She paused. "But I also understand that what we're building might be worth that risk." Daniel set down the dish towel. "Might be?" "Okay. Is worth that risk?" "Definitely is." He pulled her close, and she rested her head against his chest. They stood there in his kitchen with the snow falling outside and the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "Thank you for coming today," Daniel said. "Thank you for inviting me, for letting me meet your people." "You're part of my people now. Fair warning. That means Amanda gets to interrogate you whenever she wants." "I can handle Amanda." Famous last words. Natalie pulled back to look at him. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "When Marcus showed up last week, I almost convinced myself to give him another chance. Not because I wanted to, but because it seemed safer than this. He was known, predictable. I understood that relationship's failure points. And this? This is terrifying. You're terrifying, because I don't know how this story ends, and I desperately want it to end well." She touched his face. "I've never felt like this about someone, not even close, and that scares me more than anything." "Well, what scares you specifically? That I'll mess it up? That I'm not good at this, at partnership, at being part of someone's life? That Lily will get attached and I'll disappoint her? That you'll realize I'm too damaged or difficult or—" Daniel kissed her, silencing the spiral of worry. When they pulled apart, he kept his forehead pressed against hers. "You're not too anything. You're exactly who I want. Complicated, brilliant, terrified, brave Natalie Grant, who wears plastic tiaras and fights corporations and cries at dog commercials." I told you that in confidence, and I'm using it to make a point. You're human. Perfectly, messily human. That's all I need you to be. She kissed him again, deeper this time, and Daniel felt everything else fall away. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of past failures. All that remained was this moment, this woman, this fragile and beautiful thing they were building together. When they finally broke apart, Natalie was smiling. I should probably go. It's late. Or you could stay. She raised an eyebrow. Are you propositioning me, Daniel Harper? I'm offering you the guest room, though I'm open to other arrangements if you are. The guest room sounds perfect, for tonight. For tonight, he agreed. Daniel showed her to the guest room, small but clean, with fresh sheets and a reading lamp. Natalie borrowed one of his t-shirts to sleep in, and when she emerged from the bathroom, she looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. Good night, she said at the door to the guest room. Good night. He hesitated. Natalie? Yeah? I'm really glad you're here. Me too. Daniel went to bed but couldn't sleep. He lay there thinking about the day. Lily's acceptance, Amanda's approval, Natalie fitting into his life like a piece he hadn't known was missing. Around midnight, he heard his bedroom door creak open. Natalie stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the hallway light. I couldn't sleep, she said. The guest bed is perfectly fine. I just couldn't sleep. Daniel pulled back the covers. Come here. She crossed the room and climbed in beside him. They lay there facing each other in the darkness, not touching but close enough to share body heat. Is this okay? She asked. It's perfect. I don't want to move too fast, especially with Lily. We're not moving too fast. We're moving at exactly our speed. Natalie shifted closer and Daniel wrapped his arms around her. She fit against him like she was meant to be there, her breath warm against his neck. Daniel? Thank you for not giving up on me after the Marcus thing. Thank you for choosing this. Us. The scary thing. She tilted her head up and kissed him softly. Best decision I've made in years. They fell asleep like that, tangled together in Daniel's bed while snow continued to fall outside. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Daniel slept without worry, without planning the next day's carefully orchestrated routine. He just slept, peacefully, completely. When he woke the next morning, Natalie was gone from the bed. Panic spiked briefly until he heard voices from the kitchen, Natalie and Lily laughing about something. He found them making pancakes together, Lily standing on her step stool while Natalie supervised. They'd made a mess of the kitchen, flour on the counter, eggshells in the sink, but both looked delighted with themselves. Dad, Lily announced, Natalie's teaching me to make heart-shaped pancakes. I see that. Natalie looked up, her hair messy from sleep, wearing his t-shirt and a pair of his sweatpants that she'd had to roll up at the waist. She looked beautiful and rumpled and completely at home in his kitchen. Morning, she said, smiling. Hope you don't mind us raiding your kitchen. Mi casa es su casa. Is that Spanish? Lily asked. It means my house is your house. Oh, does that mean Natalie can come over whenever she wants? Daniel met Natalie's eyes over his daughter's head. Yes, it does. They ate misshapen heart pancakes drowning in syrup while Lily chattered about her plans for the weekend. Natalie listened with the same genuine interest she'd shown yesterday, asking questions and offering suggestions. After breakfast, Natalie reluctantly said she needed to go home. She had work to catch up on and her own apartment to deal with. Lily made her promise to come back soon. Natalie made her promise to take good care of Princess Sparkle. Daniel walked her to the door. So, he said, that happened. What happened? You stayed over, met my family, made pancakes with my daughter, generally infiltrated my entire life in one 24-hour period. Too much too fast? No, just right. She kissed him goodbye and Daniel watched her leave with the certainty that she'd be back. Not as a guest, not as someone testing the waters, but as someone who belonged. The next few weeks unfolded with surprising ease. Natalie came for dinner twice during the week. They went to a movie on Saturday while Amanda watched Lily. On Sunday, all three of them went to the aquarium to visit the prisoner penguins, and Lily held both their hands as they walked through the exhibits. People started to notice at work. Eleanor smiled knowingly whenever Natalie's name came up. Mark from Creative made jokes about Daniel being the boss's future son-in-law. Daniel didn't correct him. December arrived with bitter cold and early darkness. Christmas decorations appeared in storefronts and apartment windows. Lily started making elaborate holiday wish lists that included both toys and Natalie coming to Christmas. One evening in mid-December, after Lily was asleep and Natalie was curled up on his couch reading a report, Daniel's phone rang. An unknown number, but something made him answer. Hello? Daniel, it's Sarah. The world tilted. He hadn't heard his ex-wife's voice in 8 months, since her last awkward birthday call to Lily. What do you want? His voice came out harsher than intended. Natalie looked up from her report, concern crossing her face. I'm in Chicago. I know it's last minute, but I wanted to see Lily. Maybe take her for a weekend before Christmas? Daniel's hand tightened on the phone. A weekend? Sarah, you see her twice a year. You can't just show up and I know I haven't been present. I'm trying to change that. Please, Daniel. She's my daughter too. She's the daughter you abandoned. I didn't abandon her. I left a marriage that wasn't working. There's a difference. Not to a 4-year-old, there wasn't. Silence on the other end. Then, can I see her or not? Daniel looked at Natalie, who was watching him with quiet understanding. I need to think about it, and I need to talk to Lily. When will you know? I'll call you tomorrow. He hung up before she could respond. Natalie set down her report. Sarah? Yeah, she wants to take Lily for a weekend. Just showed up in Chicago without warning and expects me to hand over our daughter like it's nothing. What do you want to do? Tell her no. Tell her she lost the right to make demands when she walked away. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. But that's not fair to Lily. If Sarah actually wants to rebuild a relationship, I shouldn't stand in the way, even though it scares you. Terrifies me. What if Lily gets attached and Sarah disappears again? What if this is just temporary guilt and she hurts Lily worse than before? Natalie moved across the couch, taking his hand. You can't protect Lily from every possible hurt, but you can be there when she needs you, and you can set boundaries with Sarah about expectations and consistency. When did you get so wise about parenting? I'm making it up as I go, but I know about absent parents. My dad died, which is different, but I watched my mom navigate single parenthood while building a business. She made mistakes, but she was always honest with me. That's what mattered. Daniel pulled her close. What would I do without you? Probably the exact same thing, but with more anxiety. He laughed despite everything. Probably true. That night, after Natalie left, Daniel lay awake thinking about Sarah's call. He knew what he had to do: talk to Lily, let her decide if she wanted to see her mother, support whatever choice she made. But the protective part of him wanted to shield her from potential disappointment. The next morning over breakfast, he broached the subject carefully. Lily, I need to talk to you about something. She looked up from her cereal, immediately wary. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. Your mom called last night. She's in Chicago and wants to see you. Lily set down her spoon. Mom's here? Yes, she asked if you'd like to spend a weekend with her before Christmas. A whole weekend? That's what she said. But you don't have to if you don't want to. This is your choice. Lily stared at her cereal, thinking. Finally, will you be mad if I want to see her? Daniel's heart broke a little. No, sunshine, I'd never be mad about that. Will Natalie be mad? Why would Natalie be mad? Because if Mom comes back, maybe Natalie won't want to be here anymore. Daniel moved to sit beside her. Listen to me. Your mom being in your life doesn't change anything with Natalie. They're separate things. And Natalie cares about you regardless of what your mom does. Promise? Promise. So what do you want to do? Lily thought for a long moment. Can I see Mom for one day instead of a whole weekend? Like maybe lunch or something? I think that's a very smart idea. Start small. And if it goes good, maybe more later? Exactly. Okay, then I want to see her, but just for lunch. Daniel called Sarah that afternoon with Lily's decision. She wasn't happy about the limited time, but agreed. They arranged to meet the following Saturday at a family restaurant, neutral territory where Daniel would drop Lily off, Sarah would have 3 hours, and Daniel would pick her back up. When he told Natalie about the arrangement later that evening, she squeezed his hand. That took a lot of courage, letting Sarah back in even a little bit. I'm not doing it for Sarah. I'm doing it for Lily. She deserves the chance to know her mother, even if Sarah doesn't deserve the chance to know her. Still, it's brave. Saturday arrived too quickly. Daniel drove Lily to the restaurant, his stomach in knots. She'd dressed carefully, her favorite purple dress, the one she wore for special occasions. "You look beautiful," he told her. "Thanks. Do you think Mom will remember my favorite color?" "I don't know, sunshine." They pulled into the parking lot. Sarah's car was already there, a rental, which somehow made this feel even more temporary. "I'll be back in 3 hours," Daniel said. "If you want to leave earlier, call me. No matter what, I'll come get you." "I know, Dad." He walked her inside. Sarah was waiting at a table by the window, older than he remembered, thinner, her hair shorter. She stood when she saw Lily, and for a moment Daniel saw real emotion cross her face. "Hi, baby," Sarah said softly. "Hi, Mom." They hugged awkwardly, and Daniel felt like an intruder. "I'll be back at 3, he said to both of them, then escaped before his emotions could betray him. He drove to Natalie's apartment. She'd offered to wait with him, understanding that sitting alone for 3 hours would be torture. She answered the door in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, her apartment finally looking somewhat unpacked. "You actually opened the miscellaneous boxes," Daniel observed. "I figured it was time to commit to living here instead of visiting." She pulled him inside. "How are you holding up?" "Ask me in 3 hours." They spent the time watching terrible daytime television and not really paying attention. Natalie made tea that went cold. Daniel checked his phone every 10 minutes. At 2:45, he couldn't take it anymore. "I should go." "Want me to come with you?" "No, I need to do this alone." He kissed her and drove back to the restaurant, arriving exactly at 3. Through the window, he could see Lily and Sarah still talking. His daughter looked okay. Not upset, not overly excited, just okay. When he walked in, Lily immediately stood and came to him. "Ready to go, sunshine?" "Yeah, bye, Mom." Sarah stood too. "Thank you for this, Daniel, really." He nodded curtly and left with Lily. In the car, she was quiet. "How was it?" he finally asked. "It was okay." She asked about school and my friends, told me about Portland. "Did you have fun?" "I guess. It was just weird, like talking to a stranger who knows things about me." "That makes sense." She asked if she could see me again before she goes back. "Maybe next weekend." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What did you tell her?" "I said I'd think about it." Lily looked at him. "Is it okay that I'm not sure?" "It's more than okay. You never have to be sure about seeing her. This is about what you want, not what she needs." "Good, because I'm not sure yet." When they got home, Natalie was waiting. She'd let herself in with the key Daniel had given her 2 weeks ago. She'd made hot chocolate and cookies, and when Lily saw her, she ran straight into her arms. "How'd it go?" Natalie asked gently. "It was weird, but okay," Lily said into her shoulder. "Weird but okay is pretty good for a first visit." That's what Dad said. That evening, after Lily went to bed, Daniel and Natalie sat on the couch in the darkness, the Christmas tree lights twinkling in the corner. "Thank you," Daniel said, "for being here, for understanding. Where else would I be?" "I don't know, but I'm glad you're here." Natalie shifted to look at him. "Daniel, I need to tell you something." His stomach dropped. "Okay. I've been thinking about us, about where this is going, and I realized something." She took his hand. "I'm in love with you, completely, terrifyingly in love with you. And I thought you should know." The words hung in the air between them, enormous and fragile. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. "I'm in love with you too. Have been for weeks, maybe since that architecture tour, definitely since Thanksgiving." She laughed, the sound catching in her throat. "We're really doing this. We're really doing this." They kissed in the glow of the Christmas lights, and Daniel felt everything click into place. The fear, the uncertainty, the risk, all of it worth this moment, this woman, this life they were building together. "So what now?" Natalie asked when they finally pulled apart. "Now we keep going, one day at a time, building something that lasts." "I can do that." "Me too." Outside, snow began to fall again, covering Chicago in white silence. Inside, Daniel held Natalie close and let himself believe in forever. The confession hung between them like something physical, transforming the air in the room. Daniel traced his thumb along Natalie's cheek, feeling the dampness there. She was crying, though whether from relief or fear or joy, he couldn't tell. Maybe all three at once. "Say it again," he whispered. "I love you," Natalie repeated, her voice steadier this time. "I love you and Lily, and this life we're building. I love your labeled apartment and your terrible movie choices and the way you look at your daughter like she hung the moon. I love all of it. My movie choices aren't terrible. You watched the same action movie 3 times last week. It has good explosions." She laughed through her tears, and Daniel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes." "Good. We can be scared together." They stayed on the couch long after the conversation ended, wrapped in each other and the quiet promise of what they'd just admitted. Eventually, Natalie fell asleep against his shoulder, and Daniel carried her to his bed for the second time. This time, though, it felt different, more permanent, like crossing a threshold they couldn't uncross. He lay beside her in the darkness, listening to her breathe, and thought about how much had changed in 2 months. The blind date he'd almost canceled had become the axis his life rotated around. Natalie had become essential, not in the desperate, clinging way he'd loved Sarah, but in something quieter and stronger. Like architecture, he thought, load-bearing walls that held everything up. December accelerated toward Christmas, with the chaos of end-of-year deadlines and holiday preparations. Eleanor's company party was scheduled for the 20th, an elaborate affair at a downtown hotel that everyone attended out of obligation and free alcohol. This year, though, Daniel was looking forward to it. He'd have Natalie on his arm, officially, in front of everyone. "Are you sure you want to go public at your mom's party?" he asked her one evening while they wrapped presents for Lily. "We're already public. Half the office knows we're dating. The other half suspects." Natalie tied a bow with more force than necessary. "Besides, my mom's been planning our wedding since Thanksgiving. Might as well let her have this small victory." "She's been what?" "Planning our wedding. She has a Pinterest board and everything. Amanda caught her showing it to the office manager last week." Daniel laughed. "Should I be worried?" "Only if you're opposed to elaborate floral arrangements and a string quartet. I'm opposed to elaborate anything. If we ever get married, I want it simple." Natalie's hands stilled on the wrapping paper. "If." Daniel realized what he'd said. "When?" "I meant when." "Did you?" He set down the scissors and turned to face her fully. "Yes. When we get married. Not if. Because I'm going to marry you, Natalie Grant. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but someday. When you're ready. When we're both ready." She kissed him hard enough to knock over the tape dispenser. Someday sounds perfect. The office party arrived with unseasonable warmth, 50 degrees in December, which felt like a gift from whatever forces controlled Chicago weather. Daniel wore his best suit, the charcoal one Amanda had convinced him to buy last year. Natalie appeared at his door in a dark green dress that made his breath catch. "Too much?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. "Perfect. You're perfect." They arrived at the hotel fashionably late. The ballroom was transformed, white lights everywhere, elegant centerpieces, a jazz band playing in the corner. Eleanor held court near the bar, resplendent in silver, greeting employees and clients with practiced grace. When she saw Daniel and Natalie enter together, her face transformed into pure maternal satisfaction. "There they are," she announced to no one in particular. "My 2 favorite people." "Mom, please don't make this weird," Natalie muttered. "I'm not making anything weird. I'm simply acknowledging that you're both here, looking lovely, clearly in love. What's weird about that?" "Everything. All of that is weird." But Eleanor was already moving on, pulled into conversation with a major client. Daniel grabbed 2 glasses of champagne from a passing waiter and handed one to Natalie. "To surviving your mother's matchmaking?" "To surviving everything that came after," Natalie corrected, clinking her glass against his. They mingled through the party, talking to colleagues and clients, dancing when the jazz band shifted to something slower. Mark from Creative made a drunken speech about true love that was both embarrassing and oddly sweet. Jennifer from Accounting cornered Natalie to ask about her work in environmental policy, and ended up talking for 45 minutes about corporate accountability. Around 10, Daniel stepped outside for air. The hotel had a terrace overlooking the Chicago River, and he stood at the railing watching the city lights reflect on the dark water. This was where it had all started, not literally, but symbolically. The river, the architecture, the foundation of everything he and Natalie had built together. There you are. Natalie joined him at the railing, wrapping her arms around herself against the mild cold. Hiding? Thinking. About? About how different my life looks now compared to 2 months ago. How much better. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Mine too, though I'm still unpacking those miscellaneous boxes. Some things take time. They stood in comfortable silence, watching boats pass beneath them, the city breathing its nighttime rhythm. Daniel? I've been thinking about what you said, about getting married someday. His heart rate picked up. And I think I want that too. Not right now, we still have things to figure out. But someday, with you. She turned to face him. I want to build a life with you,